come into this Christmas service, again, Tim had asked me a couple weeks ago if I'd be willing to speak on Christmas Eve, and I said, yeah. And just as it kind of led up to this, I just had this kind of nostalgic kind of Christmas feeling about the whole thing. And so I'm just going to ask you to bear with me. I'm going to kind of take you back in time, back in some previous Christmas times. Think of me as the ghost of Christmas past. If you're familiar with that story this morning, I am the ghost of Christmas past. My past, but it should fit into some of your past. There's only like 2 people of my age in here. Okay. All right. It won't fit into most of your past. So I'll work my way up to modern day then. So I want to take you back to December 9th, 1965. Roger was 4 years old, December 9th, of 1965. And so kind of give you where were we at as a nation in 1965? Lyndon Johnson was the president. I never heard of that guy. There's a couple of thinking this out. Yeah, you remember. You're the only person here older than me. All right, the 2 of you. There was this new music group that had come over from Europe. They were kind of rocking the charts. They're called the Beatles. You might have heard of them. All right. Ford had introduced this new vehicle called the Mustang. Took things by storm. It was selling like hotcakes. I am a Beatles and Mustangs fan, so I'm just going to throw that gratuitously out there. But also, in that time frame, 1965, the country was in kind of a state of turmoil. There were race riots going on. We were in a very unpopular war. As a result of that, the economy was kind of teetering. There was a lot of distrust of the government and things at home. The older population thought that the youth were out of control. The youth at that time thought the older generation were out of touch. Sounds a whole lot like today. Right? As I thought about this when I was preparing this, I thought, that sounds so much like today. So you can look at, what's going on in the world today and say, oh, it's gloom, it's doom, it's the end of the world, it's whatever. The same thing was happening in 1965. All right? God is still large and in charge is what I keep reminding myself in the midst of all the turmoil. But also, something that happened that year on that particular date, December 9th, 1965, 4-year-old Roger, there was a full-length children's animated cartoon that was made that year. And it was based on a comic strip. And it was a risky venture for the people that did it. All right? A full-length based on a comic strip. All right? And there was something very controversial that would end up in this cartoon. Controversial for that time, really controversial for today. A particular scene in this cartoon. Right? So let me set the stage for this. So the main character is this boy named Charlie Brown. Okay? And he has a friend named Linus, his best friend named Linus. And Charlie Brown, he struggles with this whole Christmas season, right? And so the rest of his friends in this community that he lives in, they're putting together this big Christmas play, and Charlie Brown doesn't feel like he fits in any of that, and so they decide to make him the director of the Christmas play, and he gives his best effort to do that, and he's trying to pull everybody together and get them to do the thing they want, but there's all this distraction, and they keep messing up and this and that, and he's getting frustrated, and he's frustrated with the whole Christmas thing. He watches what's going on in his community. There's all the lights and the tinsel, and you'll hear me say this often today. I'll say the wrappings and the trappings of Christmas. Now, don't get me wrong. I love Christmas, all right? It's to me, Christmas is like, my kids are saying, you don't love Christmas. I am a Grinchy, Scroogey kind of guy, but at the same time, I really believe Christmas is one of those traditional things that we're losing so much, in my opinion, of our traditions in this country. And Christmas is probably one of the biggest, Christmas is one of the biggest traditional things that people can kind of rally around. We may have different views on it or whatever, but at least it's some tradition that's holding us together. So Charlie Brown, he sees all the wrappings and the trappings, and in fact, even his dog, right, gets involved in a light contest and puts lights all over, adorns his coop with all these lights, and he's like, good grief, right? And so he's had it with the whole thing at this point. And he's also just kind of a guy to be prone to just having a lot of anxiety and frustration. And he gets to a point, so finally they say, Charlie Brown, you don't seem to be good for anything else. Just go get us a tree and bring it back for the play. So if you know the story, he goes and gets this tree, and he gets there, and there's chrome trees, red trees, blinking trees, and he wants just something basic. He wants to be tradition. So he brings back this little poor, pathetic tree, right? And everybody's like, you're a blockhead, Charlie Brown, right? He's like, I can't do anything right. what is going on here? And finally, out of frustration, Charlie Brown says, isn't there anyone who knows what Christmas is all about? He tilts back and how their peanuts mouths, they open up it's kind of weird. And he yells this out, right? And his trusty, loyal friend Linus says, sure, Charlie Brown, I can tell you what Christmas is all about. And he begins to quote directly from the Bible out of Luke 2, 8 through 14, a very controversial thing to put into a children's cartoon at the time and would be now, quite frankly. But Linus goes to the center of the stage and a spotlight comes down on him and everything gets quiet. In fact, the author of this story was a Charles Schultz who wrote the piece. They pleaded with him right to the last minute. They said, you've got to put a laugh track in this cartoon so people know where to laugh, when to laugh. And he said, no, I want this thing to be raw and I want it to be pure. And so he left all of that out, took a chance, put this thing out there. Linus standing in the spotlight on a stage, and Linus says this. Now there were in the same country shepherds living out in the fields, keeping watch over their flock by night. And behold, an angel of the Lord stood before them, and the glory of the Lord shone around them, and they were greatly afraid. Then the angel said to them, do not be afraid, for behold, I bring you good tidings of great joy, which will be to all the people. For there is born to you this day in the city of David a Savior, who is Christ the Lord. And this will be a sign to you. You will find the babe wrapped in swaddling clothes, laying in a manger. And suddenly there was with the angel a multitude of heavenly hosts praising God and saying, glory to God in the highest, and on earth peace, goodwill toward men. Straight up, word for word, quoted that verse straight out of the Bible in this children's cartoon on CBS, sponsored by Coca-Cola. A lot of people didn't want this to happen. To this day, that cartoon is the most iconic Christmas cartoon, and that verse is the center of that whole cartoon for people wait for that scene, at least for myself. And at the end, Linus turns and he says, that's what Christmas is all about, Charlie Brown. Now, that wasn't controversial to me because as a kid myself, two things, so I think I shared this before. Every single morning before we could go out the door to go to school, we would wait till the Lord's Prayer was sung by Perry Como on WTTC radio. You didn't leave the house until that song finished its last note every day. But you better have your boots and your shoes and your coat and ready to go, because if the song ended and you weren't ready, then you were in trouble, all right? So also, every Christmas, before we opened any presents, ate any food, did anything else, my mom would read that verse right there. Before Charlie Brown ever put it into a cartoon, my mom would read that verse. So why do I share this whole cartoon? Why do I share this simple, basic? This is what Christmas is. You hear the term, Jesus is the reason for the season and all these sort of things. And it's easy to get lost in the trappings and the wrappings. So this whole message today is just, again, not saying that you're not saying that you don't, but I just really want to emphasize keeping Jesus real in your Christmas. And I'm saying this to myself as well because I can get caught up in that. Let's fast forward 1 year, all right? So Linus depicted was the whole nativity scene there, okay? In that reading that particular verse. Quick story on this whole nativity. So we recently went out to find a nativity scene for our daughter Hannah. She has a new home, and every home should have a nativity scene in it. Just my humble opinion. And so we went to this one store, and we saw this beautiful, they were like a white porcelain with this nice manger and everything. And I took it up to it was like a thrift store thing. I took it up to the counter, ready to pay for this thing. And then I was like, you know what, let me unwrap the characters. I want to make sure everybody's there. That's supposed to be in a traditional. So there was, what was there? There was one wise man with broken fingers, Jesus with no foot. There were 3 or 4 angels. There was some kneeling woman who I had no know where she was. There was a guy with a pillow. It might have been Mike Liddell. I don't really know for sure. But it was just like this. And then there was a guy with fish and bread. It was like a combination of 8 Christmas stories shoved into this manger. And I was like, these are really pretty, but I'm going to pass on this. So we did end up finding her a nice, I just thought that was a funny story. I had to share it. Okay, now we're going to fast forward 1 year from that December 9th, 1965. It's December 18th, 1966. Okay? You were alive. I was alive. The rest of you, not so much. My wife was alive. Okay, so again, December 18th, 1966, Lyndon Johnson is still the president. The Beatles are still killing it with charts. Then there's this new upstart band called, what were they called? Oh, the Rolling Stones. You might have heard of them. They started putting out some songs. Mustangs were still selling like hotcakes, but so were this little car called the Volkswagen Beetle. It was also selling like hotcakes. And the world was still kind of, or at least our country was still in that kind of climatic or chaotic, I should say, state of being. When another cartoon came out, all right? Now, this particular cartoon was based on this green, hairy creature who lived on this mountain above this town called Whoville, right? And this guy had it with this whole Christmas thing. Why, for 53 years, I put up with this now. I must stop Christmas from coming. But how, right? That guy, you might have heard of him. His name was the Grinch. And he had this plan, right? I've had it with the noise. I've had it with the celebration. I've had it with the whole, all this stuff that goes down there, the singing, the noise. It sounds kind of like me, to be honest with you. In fact, I couldn't wait to be 53 years old so that Christmas I could come downstairs and say, why, for 53 years I put up with this now. And it seems like yesterday was almost 10 years ago. So when I turn 63, I'm just going to do it again and call it, why, for 63 years I put up with this now. So the Grinch, right, he had this plan. I'm going to go down into Whoville, and I'm going to steal the entire Christmas. I'm going to take every present, every decoration. In fact, if you know the story, I'm going to take the logs out of the fire. I'm going to take the last crumb that even a mouse won't have anything. I'm going to eradicate the whole thing. I'm taking it. So he develops this plan, and he goes downtown. You remember he dresses in a Christmas Santa suit, and he puts reindeer horn on his dog, Max, and they go down, and they put the entire Christmas on a big thing. They haul it to the top of Mount Crumpet to dump it. All right, that's the plan. I'm going to eradicate Christmas. Then what happens? He's right there at the brink. He's ready to get rid of Christmas, and having no presents, no decorations, no log in their fire, he hears this sound. He hears this sound of singing from Whoville. It rises up through the snow, starts out soft, begins to grow, right? And he stands there and he says this. And the Grinch, with his Grinch feet ice cold in the snow, stood puzzling. How could it be so? It came without ribbons. It came without tags. It came without packages, boxes, or bags. And he puzzled till his puzzler was sore. Then the Grinch thought of something he hadn't before. What if Christmas, he thought, doesn't come from a store? What if Christmas, perhaps, means a little bit more? So again, if I go back to the earlier cartoon, and kind of the emphasis of this whole message is Christmas should mean a little bit more. In fact, it should mean a lot more. In fact, the emphasis of Christmas shouldn't be packages, boxes, and bags. And again, this isn't a condemning. This is me just trying to reiterate that, because it's easy to get caught up in the trappings, the wrappings and the trappings, and the Grinch saw that. All right. So again, I'm not opposed to presents. I'm all about presents. In fact, December 18th, 1966 is a 5-year-old Roger Wright, and I think I've shared this before. 5-year-old Roger Wright comes downstairs, Christmas tree, whole bunch of gifts, this and that. Mom makes us listen as she reads through that scripture, right? But sitting on the back of my dad's chair, propped up there, was this teddy bear, brown and white teddy bear with a big red ribbon around his neck, right? So we were all about the trappings and the wrappings, but we also made it a point. And so I happen to have with me today, I think I shared this guy before under some other context. So this was that bear. I loved him nearly to death. As you can see, he's missing a couple things, and I did put a diaper thing on him at some point along the line. But at that morning when I come down, he was furry and big ribbon and just sitting there. And he was the essence of Christmas to me as a 5-year-old. All right? So again, don't think for one second I'm not about gifts and the wrappings and trappings and the trees and all that sort of thing. But again, think about my mom. Before I could go touch this, I listened to that, right? And we had the nativity scene, and she would explain to us as children what the nativity scene meant and what each of the things were. So again, don't hear what I'm not saying, as my former pastor used to say all the time. So the Grinch, there was something else. The people of Whoville, again, I'm not pretending that cartoon, that the Grinch had some born-again moment. Although, bear with me now, I gave this a lot of thought. So I'm not insinuating that was but he did at that moment see something different. He saw, with the lack of all the things he had stolen, a group of people whose hearts were still filled with love and joy and something way beyond just the essence of the season. There was something there. There was something greater. Right? And I'm going to contend that the people in Whoville, okay, had a Christmas spirit about them. And I'm going to say that spirit is the spirit of the Lord. For you and me, us who's in our Whoville, that's the spirit we should have. Now, if somebody came in and stole all my presents and took my tree and shoved it up the chimney and took every log out of the, well, I don't have a fire, but they took every crumb of food, I wouldn't be very happy about it, to be quite honest with you. But I do know I'd still be filled with the joy of the Lord if that happened on Christmas Day. It'd be interesting if the whole town happened, if we'd all get in a big circle and sing, Fa-hu-do. I don't know that we would do that. But at my house, I would still have the joy of the Lord. I would wonder what happened to my gifts, and I'd feel a little violated, to be honest with you. But that would happen. In fact, I want to read this. So it says, well, in Whoville that day, they say that the Grinch's small heart grew 3 sizes that day. And then the true meaning of Christmas came through, and the Grinch found the strength of 10 Grinches plus 2. So again, his heart grew 3 times, and the meaning of Christmas came through, is what the story says. Ephesians 3:16 says this, I pray that out of his glorious riches he may strengthen you with power through his Spirit in your inner being, so that Christ may dwell in your hearts through faith. And I pray that you, being rooted and established in love, may have power, together with all the Lord's holy people, to grasp how wide and how long and how high and how deep is the love of Christ. And to know this love that surpasses knowledge, that you may be filled to the measure of all the fullness of God. I think that's what happened in Whoville at that moment. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. All right, you interpret that cartoon however you want. I think when a whole town of people come out and sing Fa-hu-do-re, which I think that means Hail Jesus. I'm not sure. I don't speak Whoville language, but I'm pretty sure that's what that song meant. And after having gone through that event, I'm convinced that they had the Holy Spirit working for them. I'm going to jump ahead 10 years. Again, now it's December 19th, 1971. December 19th, 1971. This is a 10-year-old Roger Wright. And almost Christmas time, trees up. You didn't see gifts. Strange thing, you never saw gifts till Christmas morning because Santa brought them, right? But yet I would find them a month earlier hidden behind the door in my mom's bedroom, where I would go and play with them and open them and check them out and make sure they're the right thing I wanted and everything most of the time. Other times there would be these really super cool gifts that were there, and I was like, this is awesome. Christmas is going to be awesome. And they weren't there Christmas morning because my neighbors, their mom hid their stuff in my mom's bedroom, and then I would find them and play with them and be like super stoked about them and be like, where's I remember one year it was the Munsters vehicle had all the characters. I was like, this is awesome. It wasn't there. Another year was this giant full-size stuffed alligator. How do you miss that? It wasn't there. And I go to my friends after Christmas to play. I'm like, what? You guys, you got my toys. I couldn't connect the dots. Although the alligator, their kids was so afraid of it, they actually gave it to us, so that ended up being pretty cool. I double dipped that year. I got that cool gift. So it's 1971, 10-year-old Roger Wright, and there's another TV special that comes on. Right? It's about this family, poor family, lived in the mountains in Virginia. They had 7 children, parents, grandparents lived with them, right? So it's in the Depression time, and the dad's off working in the city because there's no work to be found. He had to go somewhere else to get money. And anyway, the story goes that he's not back for when he should have been, and they're hearing on the radio that there was this horrific bus crash and somebody died. So the mom sends the oldest son, John Boy, to go find the dad. The story's called A Homecoming, and it was the emphasis, it was the basis, it was the beginning of the show, The Waltons. You might recall, Waltons. You've heard the Waltons, you've heard the Waltons. Some of you saw a poster or something about it, but anyway, wonderful show. So anyway, this family, again, this is Depression time. The dad's gone. There are no gifts to be had. But if you watch the essence of this family And that was the whole thing with this show when it became a TV show for like 9 seasons, like 200 some episodes of this show. I remember as a kid, even today, you'll hear people say, "Good night, John Boy. Good night, Mary Ellen. Good night." So it was based on this couple, right? Olivia and John Walton, who were played by Ralph White, who played John Walton. And Ralph White, it turns out, was actually an ordained pastor. But yet in the TV show, he didn't have anything to do with church, and his wife, and he would argue over why he didn't come to church and everything. So interesting how he was actually a pastor, but was able to play that character to give the essence of that TV show. But the characters, the children's name, if you remember, were John Boy, John Jr., John Boy. He was actually playing the real life role of the person who created the series and wrote the book and wrote the movie, right? This gentleman's name was Earl Hamner, and John Boy reflected him in the show. And there was the other children, Jason, Mary Ellen, Aaron, Ben, Jim, Bob, and Elizabeth. So 7 kids, parents, grandparents, poor community, not a lot going on for Christmas. And when that show played in 1971, it resonated with me. I'm the youngest of 11 children. My dad worked in a sawmill like John Walton worked in a sawmill. We were poor. I've told this story before. I didn't know I was poor until I got to school and people told me, but we were poor and there wasn't a lot. And you got to pick one gift out of a Sears Christmas catalog. You picked one gift. You better get it right because it's all you're getting. You got that one gift. And my dad I don't know how he did it, to be honest with you. I knew what kind of money he didn't make at the time and all these kids, and he would manage to come through with that one gift. And so I'm a 10-year-old Roger Wright. I'm watching the show about this family, and I'm really resonating and relating to it. And then it goes on to become the series of show. Why am I saying all this? That's the other emphasis of Christmas. It's the family. It's the beauty of just being together. It's the joy of just sharing and the laughter and the singing. Our caroling last night, we hadn't done it so long, and we probably sounded terrible, but it was beautiful. And so again, wrappings and trappings, I'm encouraging you, Jesus is the emphasis of that season. Family is the other emphasis of that season. 10-year-old Roger Wright picks one gift out of the Sears catalog. Here it is. 10-year-old Roger Wright picked this gift out of the Sears catalog. These are the only 2 things I have remaining of my childhood as far as the gifts that I received and whatever, but I did have this one. And so I see my grandchildren playing with one. I was like, "Oh, how do you get their hands on that?" And I go grab it and I stuff it back in a drawer somewhere. It's like, this thing lasted all these years. They're not taking that thing. So anywho, so again, don't mistake. We were all about gifts. We were all about the gifts and the wrappings and the trees and the singing and the eggnog and all that thing. But again, Jesus is the focal point. Family is the essence of the togetherness. So I'm going to take a big leap here. If I go every 10 years, I'm old enough to take the rest of the afternoon. So we're going to jump ahead 20 years. I'm 30-ish years old. I'm married now. I have kids of my own, 2 kids at this point, house. And so Sean and I, we're living in this house that we're renovating as we go down in Powell, and 2 kids, and it's a Christmas Eve. Again, I've got the tree. I'm totally caught up in the whole wrappings and trappings at this point because I'm the guy out. We're going out, we're buying, and we're wrapping, and I got to go get a tree and put it up. And I was one of these guys like I will go get a tree out of the woods. I'm a realist. I'm a traditionalist, right? I'm not going to go some tree farm or something. You know how hard it is to find a Christmas tree in the woods that looks even remotely halfway decent. It's hard. And then we'd bring it home, and we'd set it up in this playpen so the kids couldn't get to it. It's kind of weird. There's pictures of trees in a playpen. I don't know. But anyway, that's what we did. So the kids are old enough now, it's not in there. But anyway, I'm caught up in the wrappings and the trappings, and it's Christmas Eve, and I'm trying to get the last minute stuff done. And tradition, again, from my house and with my house, or from my parents' house and now to mine, is there's no gifts under the tree until Christmas morning because Santa brings them, right? He's not going to bring them a week early and just kind of hang them out there. If you do that, that's cool. Maybe Santa needs storage space. I don't know. That's what he does. He comes to your house early because he doesn't have room for them all in his sleigh. I'm good with that. Our house, they showed up after Santa. So I take the kids upstairs, finally getting them into bed so I can probably have to go put something together or finish wrapping something or whatever. Probably have to go to town and get my wife's gift. Yeah, I don't know. It's a possibility. My brother and I did this whole Christmas Eve stupid. If you do that, that's fine. But I don't do that anymore. So I take the kids upstairs, true story, and I tuck them in. It's Devin, By the way, the gentleman playing bass up here, if you look remotely kind of like me, this is my oldest son, Devin, who joined us today to play bass. So at that time, Devin and my oldest daughter, Crystal. And to this day, I don't remember who said this, to be completely honest with you. Devin will probably claim it was him. I think he has. So I go to tuck them in, and as I'm tucking them in, one of them says this thing to me that becomes this song. So I'm not going to tell you this, I'm just going to sing the song. So, the tree was a glitter of tinsel and light as I tucked in the children, kissed them goodnight. I told them that Santa was checking his list, and soon he'd be there with his big bag of gifts. And there in the quiet hour of a Christmas Eve night came the words that I'll remember for the rest of my life. Daddy, did you know that Christmas starts with Christ? The first 6 letters in a row. And don't you think that's nice? Daddy, do you think that everyone looks at it the same? Do they know there'd be no Christmas if it wasn't for that name? As I went back down the steps to put the gifts under the tree, I couldn't help but think about my child's words to me. The more I thought about them, the more that I believed that my child saw more in Christmas than I had ever seen. Daddy, did you know that Christmas starts with Christ? The first 6 letters in a row. And don't you think that's nice? Daddy, do you think that everyone looks at it the same? And do they know there'd be no Christmas if it wasn't for that name? Is Christ in your Christmas, or is it only Santa Claus? If it weren't for Jesus, there'd be no Christmas at all. He's the reason for the season, any time of year. And once again, it took a child to make that message clear. Daddy, did you know that Christmas starts with Christ? The first 6 letters in a row. And don't you think that's nice? Daddy, do you think that everyone looks at it the same? And do they know there'd be no Christmas if it wasn't for that name? Daddy, did you know? Daddy, did you know? Those were the words, yeah. Those were the words coming from my 5, 6-year-old child. Devin says it was him. Might have been Crystal. I honestly don't remember. So they said, Daddy, did you know the Christmas starts with Christ? And they noted that the first 6 letters in the word of Christmas was Christ. So in closing, let me just say this. Again, I'm reiterating again. Go enjoy your Christmas. Go enjoy your gifts. Go enjoy the tree, the singing. Go enjoy every aspect of whatever traditional Christmas you have, whether it's tonight, whether it's tomorrow night, or yesterday as it was in our case, because that's when we could get our whole 22 people together, because they get married and they think they're supposed to go to the other family. I don't understand that. We're going to have to talk about that. The true loyalists are here today, so the rest of them, whatever. So it's cool. It's all good. So whenever you do, go enjoy. The last thing I want to do is erase any part of your Christmas tradition, because I love your Christmas tradition just as I love mine. Again, I think it's one melting pot of thing that holds us together as a nation, is the whole emphasis of this Christmas thing, and I don't discourage any of it. But I do say, in the midst of all of that, please make sure that Jesus is the first 6 letters in your Christmas. And I'll leave you with this. John 3:16 says, "For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son. Whoever should believe in him shall not perish but have eternal life." Jesus was the perfect gift, freely given, no strings attached. You don't even have to unwrap it. Jesus is the perfect gift. If you haven't received the gift of Jesus, that perfect gift yet, I'm encouraging you this Christmas, make that your primary gift. Pursue that gift. Ask somebody about that gift. Come talk to me about that gift. Make sure that if you get no other gift this Christmas, it's a gift of Jesus Christ in your life, which will then be in your household, which will then be in your family's life and in their households. And again, it is literally the greatest gift that keeps on giving. So with that, I say to you, Merry Christmas and go and enjoy. Thank you.